Check out this Xbox update. This Starfield controller might actually be real. We finally know the truth about this Xbox disaster. Let's discuss. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Xbox Ready, the YouTube channel that is all about Xbox. This is like my own little Xbox variety show. I talk everything that's going on in the Xbox world. I talk news, games, rumors, I bring guests on, I do little tips, I do little tutorials. So if that appeals to you, whether you're a veteran member of the Xbox family or you're new, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed. I also have a lot of stuff linked down in the description, stuff that will pop up in the new YouTube shopping kind of section of this video that links to controllers, to different Xbox accessories. So if you're interested in checking that out, I would really appreciate it if you do, because if you use these links to buy any stuff for yourself or a gamer in your life, it goes a long way in helping out the channel. Now let's talk about a recent update they implemented for the PC Xbox app. As I mentioned before on the channel, I now have a serviceable gaming PC. So because I've been spending more time on PC, I've noticed little changes coming to the PC Xbox app. These changes were officially detailed on the Xbox Wire. Number 1, we have improved discovery with updated game card filtering and new collections. They've updated game cards throughout the app to give us more information and convenience. Now we can see the game's title along with contextual metadata like publisher, pricing, how long to beat time, coming to Game Pass date, leaving Game Pass date, for games leaving soon, and more. I especially like the new collections that they've added, especially this one that is like, okay, these games you can beat in 5 hours or less. I've been in kind of a state of limbo since Redfall launched. I was like, okay, I felt like that was the game that I was going to be playing throughout May, but it's not. But I don't want to start a game that's going to take up a lot of my time because I know Diablo 4 is coming out and I know that's going to take up my entire life. So what are some short bite-sized games I can jump into, beat really quick without dedicating a ton of time to? Planet of Lana was one of those games. Ravenlock was another one of those games. I'm playing through Cassette Beast right now. All of them I'm going to drop the second that I get into Diablo 4. They also have a new menu for accessibility options. The new centralized location allows you to customize your accessibility settings, such as enabling or disabling animations and background images, or customizing the ability to browse for games by accessibility features. We've made it easier for you to manage all these settings, as well as PC gaming related settings in one place. The most interesting thing about this update is what they did with the social tab. There's now a little tab, a little window that pops up on the bottom right corner of your PC Xbox app that has your friends list and all of your messages and chat. It's nice having this separate because it used to be just like piled in my notification center. So I clicked the little bell and it was like, oh, you have missed messages and here's all the things that have been updated. Here's all the people that are now following you. It was all in one thing. It was like kind of hard to sift through all that. You could do that or go to the community tab, which was like a whole thing. Having its own little window is nice. And apparently I haven't tried this, but you can pop it out onto another desktop so you have it separate from the app, or you can overlay it on a game that's in windowed mode. It's been really helpful to me, especially because I share my gamer tag on the channel and a lot of people have been reaching out. In the previous system, a lot of those messages I didn't get to see because they weren't like in my face. Now it's like I get the alert and I'm like, oh, I can respond to them much more easily. Overall, I know that none of these are especially like home runs or like super sexy features, but even if they're small, I do appreciate these changes. I do appreciate that they continue to work on the Xbox app in general. I don't know if it'll ever be a true competitor to Steam, but it is nice to have, especially as someone who uses all aspects of the Xbox ecosystem, playing on my console and then transferring that data over to the Xbox app on PC, picking up where I left off there, then going over to cloud and having it all synced. It's nice. Now we gotta talk about this new Starfield controller that's been making the round on the internet. Now, about a week ago, there were rumors spreading around that Xbox at Starfield Direct on June 11th was going to reveal a special edition Series X controller and headset. There weren't any specifics on designs, but leakers apparently were able to grab price points for each of the products, with the controller being $80 and the headset, I believe, is like $130. These rumors came a couple of weeks after someone was like, oh, the Xbox special edition Starfield controller leaked. Take a look at this. And I was convinced that it was a fan-made thing. They didn't look like leaks. It was like a whole photo shoot, including like the controller being held in Johnny Silverhand's arm, the controller on that Master Chief controller holder. I was like, this looks cool, but it looks like a fan-made thing. But the guy who posted it was like, no, this is a real thing. This isn't fan-made. You gotta believe me, guys. And I was like, I'm not believing you. This seems fake. I'm calling it. It looks fake. And then I wake up this morning and they're like, oh, check out this Starfield controller. This time it's not having a whole photo shoot, but it's in the box. It's an actual box. And on the cover is the same design that we saw in those pictures all of those weeks ago. This always happens to me. I talked about this controller last video and I was like, I bet this is fake. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh God, okay, maybe it's not fake. It looks like a legit controller box. The only thing that weirds me out about this controller box is the inclusion of the PEGI 18 logo in the bottom left. I don't know, I feel like that's just not something that we see typically on Xbox controller packaging. But maybe because it's associated with a game that has a PEGI 18 rating, they have to include that. I don't know. And I gotta say, I like the overall design with the controller if this ends up being real. It's a lot more understated than the controller designs they released for Redfall. It's packed with a lot of details, but it still looks like minimalistic, I'll say. It has like the Starfield logo colors over the guide button. And if you zoom in on its box, it looks like it also has gray rubberized grips on the back. And if you look at the triggers, it looks like they're almost clear in a way. I'm now moving the possibility of this controller being revealed at Starfield Direct from no to okay, pretty likely. Now I'm more interested on how they would do a special edition headset. Is it going to be the first-party Xbox wireless headset, or is it going to be a completely new design? I guess we'll just have to wait until June 11th to see. Now let's talk the latest Activision Blizzard news. If you're watching this channel, if you're an Xbox fan, then you probably know at this point that the Competition Markets Authority, the CMA, over in the United Kingdom has blocked Microsoft's attempt to buy Activision Blizzard. And Microsoft is like, hey man, that's not cool. You should totally have approved this deal. And the CMA, the United Kingdom, was like, well, you can appeal it if you want. It may or may not work. And Microsoft was like, yeah, we're gonna appeal. We're gonna fight this thing. We're gonna get it approved. On July 24th, this appeal, this whole process, this whole shindig will go to the next stage. The UK's Competition Appeal Tribunal is meeting on the 24th, and they're gonna review. They've set aside 2 weeks to review this appeal. Marcus Smith, the judge who's overseeing this whole thing, has mentioned that he doesn't think it's gonna take that long to maybe come to a decision on whether or not they should grant this appeal or not. But he also mentioned that in the past, they've kind of cut corners to make this thing shorter, and he's like, I want to do the opposite of that. So it could drag on until like the beginning of August. And if the appeal is granted, remember, yes, it is good news, but then they basically have to go through the whole process again of trying to get the CMA to approve this deal in the United Kingdom. It's crazy if you're Xbox leadership, it's a crazy time if you're Microsoft, and it's crazy if you're a fan of Xbox because this thing has dragged on for so long. And again, even if the appeal is granted at the end of July or at the beginning of August, they have to jump through a whole nother set of hoops. This thing could go on for like the next 6, 7, 8 months. And no one wants that. We just want an answer on whether or not we get to play Diablo 4 on Game Pass. Now, at this point, if you're watching this channel, I'm sure that you're familiar with Redfall. Even if you haven't played the game for yourself, you've probably heard by now how Redfall was absolutely eviscerated by both critics and fans. This was a huge blow to Xbox Game Studios because the first half of this year, they were touting it as like, oh my gosh, this is Arkane's first Xbox exclusive game. It's gonna be awesome. We already delayed it a couple of times, but now it's finally coming out, guys. But during that time, I personally had a lot of questions. I know a lot of you did as well. Ultimately, I chose to put my faith in Arkane Studios. They have a great track record. They've made some really awesome games in the past, but unfortunately, my optimism was not rewarded. And at the time of filming this video, I've only played like a couple of hours of Redfall, and I have no desire to play it again in its current state. There's been a ton of discourse on this game since it launched earlier in May. Thousands of creators putting out reviews talking about how bad the game is, but a lot of people have been asking why. What went wrong in the development of this game? Well, thanks to Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, we may finally have an answer as to why. What were the factors that contributed to the state of Redfall? This whole article is based around anonymous statements taken from people who worked on Redfall, who worked at Arkane Austin, and allegedly it all started back in 2018 when some higher-ups pitched a multiplayer Arkane shooter. And that confused a lot of people because that is typically not the kind of game that Arkane works on. You think about their other games, Deathloop, Dishonored, Prey doesn't exactly fall under that category, and the original plan was that this game, Redfall, was going to be heavy on the microtransactions, which again was very confusing to a lot of people, especially new talent that they'd hired, thinking that, oh, I'm working at Arkane, I'm gonna be working on immersive sims. So already the vision for the game was muddled from the very beginning. It wasn't a strong pitch that everyone was on board for, apparently. Which makes a lot of sense because that vision didn't really come together even in the months leading up to Redfall's release. I came on the channel and I was like, what is going on with this game? People are saying it's like a looter shooter. People are saying it's like Borderlands. They're saying it's like Far Cry. They're saying it's an immersive sim. What is going on? Apparently staffing for this game was a huge problem as well. They had trouble filling vacancies, and apparently were offering below average pay for those jobs, which that's just like typical Texas, man. Like, they're always constantly underpaying people over there. I grew up there. I get to say that, yes, things are cheaper down there, and I love Texas, but on a whole, it seems like they underpay people down there. So they kind of had this loose vision of a multiplayer shooter that relied on microtransactions to make money for 3 years, from 2018 to 2021, and then in 2021, they were like, no, we're not doing that anymore. It got to the point that sources were saying that after Microsoft acquired Bethesda, their parent company, that they were hoping Microsoft were just going to cancel the game or reboot the project. Unfortunately, Microsoft had a very hands-off approach. They were like, you guys, y'all keep doing your thing, we're going to be doing other stuff, I guess. And that part, at least, was confirmed by Phil Spencer himself when he came on that Kinda Funny Xcast for that interview. He says, "We didn't do a good job early on in engaging Arkane Austin to really help them understand what it meant to be a part of Xbox and part of first party, and use some of our internal resources to help move them along on that journey even faster. We left them to work on that game. They're a very talented team. I love that team, and I still do, and I will totally bet on them to do another great game." And while, yes, that may sound kind of cool, like I have a little bit more freedom if I'm Arkane, they clearly needed the help. Apparently they were struggling with the engine, they were struggling with the vacancies, they were short-staffed, they didn't really know what kind of game they were gonna ship. All in all, we all know the end result of the story. Redfall releases, probably shouldn't have released, and it got scores. I think it's sitting at like a 5 of 10, 6 of 10 on most review sites, and that's a tough pill to swallow, and I feel like a lot of Xbox fans still haven't gotten over it. But I feel like this was just the perfect storm of a lot of different factors, and I feel like Xbox is in a sort of tricky situation here. They're hands off on some studios and more involved in others. Phil Spencer has assured us that, oh, this isn't going to happen again with Starfield because we came in early on development of that game and were able to offer our resources to help out Bethesda in that game. Hopefully that works out and the game is awesome. I hope that Xbox, I hope that game studios in general can just leave behind this craze of wanting the next big multiplayer game, the next big Fortnite or Apex Legends, and have these studios just stick to what they do best. Anyways, guys, that's all the news I have for today. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of Xbox Ready, and we'll see you in the next video.